So, welcome to the Game Design Challenge. This 4-week program is to help you learn about game development and game design. And a really important part of game design is prototyping. Prototyping is important for game development and many engineering disciplines. This game development, game design challenge is brought to you by Dell Technologies, Alienware, and Microsoft, as well as many other wonderful sponsors, including Roblox, who we'll be hearing from today. We're going to be hearing from Peter Wonica from Roblox about prototyping, and I hope you are all very excited for this talk because I certainly am. If you have any questions, be sure to add them in the Twitch chat and we will answer them at the end. And I'm excited to hear what we have to learn today. Peter?
Yeah, hey everybody. So I'm Peter, and I'll be getting straight into working in how to prototype your video games today. So yeah, let me go ahead and start presenting. So cool. And I'm gonna just kind of dive like straight into this. So real quick, I'm Peter. On the right is my Roblox avatar, and I'm an instructional designer here at Roblox. One of the things, a little bit about me, is I've taught game design to basically every age, whether it's elementary school game design to university, to even people in like their 40s and 50s making their own first game. So a little bit about today is I'm going to tell you all about what prototyping actually is, kind of giving you all a little bit of different examples, and then we're going to get into how you actually can prototype yourself, and then we're going to have a lot of Q&A. So now actually kind of getting into like what exactly is prototyping. Prototyping is basically the act of creating a small playable version or parts of a game. So whenever you actually get an idea for your game, you can go ahead and build out a prototype. This can be so many little things. Like it can be a tiny little game that just kind of give you the feel of what you want to create, or it can be just tons of sketches of what your game might actually look like. Now, one of the reasons why we want to prototype is this is something I like to kind of stick with whenever I think of why I'm doing this, is it's hard to make a city without a blueprint. So when it comes to actually building a game is actually really difficult, and that can actually take a lot of time. But if you actually have a blueprint to actually make that, it can help out in a lot of different ways. So some of those ways that it can actually help out is it's really quick to actually show a friend what you're doing. And think about it a little bit this way, like you have this idea in your head and it can be really tricky to explain that idea. It's a lot easier to actually like show somebody than to try and explain something. It's something you probably hear a lot in school is show, not tell. And showing it is a really quick way of getting that and building out that game. One other thing is your ideas might change, and that's also totally okay. One of the things I like to do, and I actually do make lots of just games in my free time, but one of the things I also like to do is creative writing. Sometimes the ideas you have might change and prototypes can show you. So when I have written one story, I wanted to write this really big, epic fantasy story, lots of dragons, lots of like epic quests. But what I ended up like ended up making is I ended up just writing kind of just like a really cheesy romance story because it was just funny. And like, it's cool that your ideas can change. And also keep in mind that it can be really hard to describe one of your ideas. So yeah, now let's actually kind of see what prototyping actually looks like. So in some of the games that I've actually worked on at Roblox, we end up prototyping things in very simple ways. For instance, what you see here on the left is actually a prototype of the world I built out on the right. So can anybody spot like some of the things you can notice? Like you can actually notice like on the left, like that big blue block was actually turned into finally a waterfall. And the idea here, yeah, like somebody saying in the chat, like simplify its shapes. It's all prototype is all about actually reducing your ideas into something very simple so you can show off to people. So when I prototyped this thing on the left, I built this out, I walked around it, I kind of just looked around and thought like, okay, does this feel right to kind of walk around? Does this kind of look cool to me? And then once I get that really basic idea, I can actually build it out. Now, this also kind of goes to all sorts of different things like graphic design. So you can see here on the left on my very, very bad graphic design that I was just kind of putting down a couple of things just to kind of see where I actually want my text to go, where I want some parts of my game to go. And then on the right, once I actually got that figured out, I actually built it out and it looked good. Now, this also helped me save a lot of time since I actually got, yeah, exactly, programmer art. Nothing wrong with programmer art. It's always good to kind of like get something real simple and then get straight into it. Kind of also getting to like more prototyping is on the left, you have like a little bit of the compare and contrast. So again, with another one of the games that I was building out, we were trying to figure out on how does this space actually feel to walk around. And so we build out these really, honestly, kind of ugly looking worlds. Like, but it gives you the sense of like, okay, this is what my game looks like. This is what I want my game to look like. And then once we actually get that going, exactly like writing a rough draft, good light bulb moment right there, is you can actually get that into your final draft, which looks a lot more nice. Now, a little bit actually getting into like the process of prototyping is it's basically this big cycle that just goes around and around. So when you actually make your first prototype, you're going to go ahead and share it, get some feedback, kind of ask somebody like, oh, hey, what can I do here? How can I improve that? And then you keep on working on that prototype. Take, for instance, like this world. This is probably like the 10th prototype on the left. So I made almost like 10 rough drafts before finally getting into my final draft, which you can actually see on the right. And so now actually kind of getting into how you all can actually start prototyping for your own games is one, you can build a vision board. And just out of curiosity, like feel free to put in the chat, like if you've ever actually made a vision board, or you can also call this a mood board. Another thing that you can do is make paper or physical prototypes, which, weird thought that you can actually turn a digital game into paper, but it's actually a really good way of figuring out what a game looks like. And another third way that you can prototype is building out a really simple game. So I'll actually show you all what these prototypes can actually look like. So let's just say that we want to make a vision board. So a vision board is basically slapping a whole bunch of pictures together just to try and see what is the vibe that I'm going for. So let's take this environment that you can actually see here. So before we actually settled on all these cool things, we needed to kind of figure out, okay, what do we actually want to do here? And so I ended up building out a vision board to kind of figure out what this alien world wants to be. So here, and this is so simple, you can just kind of do it like right after this, is you can just have an idea in your head. Okay, I want to build out an alien world, and then just go into Google search a whole bunch of images of what your alien world looks like, and you can build out a vision board. So you can see actually like how little parts of the vision here made it into the final product. So you get like little cranes, you can get like these really weird tall plants. And over here, you can kind of see how that inspired it. And yeah, so now actually kind of getting into paper and physical prototyping. So has anybody ever played games like Temple Run, platforming games, obstacle games? These are really great, and these are really easy to actually prototype with paper and pencil. So for instance, and this is actually an example from a kid I was actually teaching in, I think, a middle school class, but they were doing a game on like the quest for lunch, they called it, and ended up making a real quick drawing on what their title screen looks like. And then on the thing left is they built out what they wanted to have of their game world. Now, one thing that really helps here is think about how much time it might take to build a game. It can take maybe a couple of hours even, or even longer, but it can take you just a minute to get that quick idea into paper, and then you can actually build something out. So once this student actually built out this quick sketch, they just went straight into making stuff. And another example is, I think this was a fifth grader, and they built a game called Cavity Destruction that it was all about like hunting down cavities in their teeth, and like enemies were things like Kit Kats and candy. And so they ended up building out on the left a title screen, what they wanted to eventually do. And on the right, kind of showing, okay, here's where I want my enemies to be. Here's what I want my little world to be. Here's how my jump should be. So that's an example of what paper prototyping can do. And you can just do this like right as soon as you have an idea. Another example of more paper prototyping is think about the process of building out worlds. So it's super fun to build worlds, but worlds can also be kind of complicated if you start working on it. One thing you can do is actually build out a paper prototype. For instance, this is another student that I was working with that we were working to make a 3D world. And what they ended up doing is kind of just making a quick map of what the main idea of the project they want to be working on. For instance, they wanted to have an ocean somewhere. They wanted to have some villages there. And then eventually they can take a map like this and actually build it out into a bigger world like that. And so the third example that I wanted to show you all is how do you actually build a really simple game in Roblox? And one cool thing actually about working in Roblox is you can actually build really quick and simple games. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, one example here is you can see this big game that I ended up building out. And once I actually kind of get into the game, it's basically a little bit of an obstacle course. I go out, I jump, I make sure my jumps are timed right, which clearly I am not very good at my own game. But one of the things that you can actually do to get yourself started is to actually build and make your own games. And one thing that you can do in Roblox is really quickly build out a basic idea of a game. For instance, here, now, just kind of going back to the rough drafts that I was showing you all, is I don't need to worry about color. I don't need to worry about what the actual look and feel is yet. I just want to make sure that I have a fun game. And so what I can do here is I can just really quickly duplicate, rotate a whole bunch of things, and just try and get a little bit of a feel of what actually my game might look like without getting into the details too much. Really, that's like the one big thing to think about when it comes to prototyping, is it's all about getting those rough drafts, that rough idea really in before you actually get into those details. So if I went ahead and play this game, let's just actually see how it goes. And yeah, somebody's asking, would you suggest starting with an obby game? Totally. Obstacle courses? Oh, I did a quick little derp and forgot to do something very simple, and they disappeared. Okay, now they're back. So now, who thinks I'm gonna not be able to finish this jump? Let's see. So, okay. Oh, didn't make that one. So this is one of the great reasons why you actually do want a prototype is it helps you figure out when your games might not work or when they might not be fun. So again, I'm showing myself how to actually build this game, and I'm gonna go ahead and keep on improving it. And once I actually have the basic rough draft, then I can go ahead and start out with all of the details and then keep on working. And I just built this really in like 2 or so minutes, maybe 3 or 4. But the idea here is you can build out really quick and then you can actually get your game going. Now, what I do actually want to finish with you all before we get into a little question and answer is what you can do next. So little bit of wisdom from the years of game design that I've had is one, keep a journal. This can be a journal on your phone. I keep a little bit of a notepad on my phone. Anytime I have an idea for a game, a story, even if it's just like, I'd really want to have a game in this type of world, just write it down. All of those ideas can eventually come into something much more bigger. And you're just getting your creative juices flowing. Another thing is start with something small, even if it doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with starting with something small. And even if it doesn't work, like you can always keep on getting better. And last thing is always share what you end up making. That's always, for one, that's really motivating to just really be able to show somebody you can make. And another thing is ask people what they're making themselves. That's how you can actually learn from others and you can learn from what others think about your own work. So, and just to kind of wrap up, we have some questions, but I also want to point you all, if you all ever want to learn a little bit more about Roblox, we have our Roblox website at education.roblox.com. And you can learn tutorials, you can learn how to make your own games, and get started in prototyping. But yeah, we can go ahead and get into some questions now.
For someone starting out and trying to draft their very first game design, their very first idea, how do you recommend that they start with a prototype? Like, what do you do first?
So that sometimes kind of depends on what you want to actually make. What I always recommend is getting a paper prototype. So, and you might need to think a little bit about the game you are trying to make. So if I'm wanting to make a platforming game, for instance, I can just draw out a map of where my jumps go, where my enemies go. If I want to make a role-playing game, for instance, I can write down almost a script of what my characters say, keep a little bit of a journal of what my world might be like. Starting with paper prototypes is always a great way to kind of get a little bit of those juices, creative juices going. And so that's kind of where I recommend starting out.
Great. And when working on a paper prototype, obviously it depends on what type of game you're making, but do you recommend designing the world first, your characters first, mechanics first? Where do you like to start?
For me personally, I kind of go after whatever I'm most excited about. For instance, in one of the games we previously worked on at Roblox, I really wanted to get a world all about ancient technology and just bright purple colors. And so I built out a vision board for that. Another game that I was thinking about was a game where you actually move by actually like running with your phone. And so I had like an accelerometer on my phone, and I wanted to build a game mechanic based off that. And then, I added a world and all that later on, but I started mechanic first because that's what I was most excited about.
Awesome. So we have two questions here from the chat. The first is how do you get started in Roblox prototyping?
So when it comes to getting started in Roblox, what I would actually recommend is going to education.roblox.com. And there you can actually go ahead and learn a couple of lessons to get yourself started in Roblox. And that can also just be a really great prototyping tool, since you can actually see a wide variety of different templates that are included in Roblox Studio, like racing templates, shooting templates that you can kind of make your own stuff.
And Roblox Studio is completely free?
Completely free, yeah.
Awesome. There's another question. What is your favorite part of prototyping?
Oh, my favorite part of prototyping is honestly getting people to play the game I'm working on. Um, Even if it's really bad, because even then that's like great feedback. But then it's sometimes really fun just to get people to play your game because that makes you want to make your game even more. Like, for instance, the game that I built on the phone for Roblox, it was really fun just getting everybody in the office to play it because we'd all just be running around the actual Roblox office, just like testing out this game, and it's just super fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally have experienced watching someone play test your game, and it's super heartwarming. And of course, you end up learning a lot from it. Um, Somebody asked, do game designers go through all of these prototyping steps?
Um, I would say I would say that game designers generally go through all these prototyping steps. For instance, you build out a prototype, you share it with people, and then you improve it. It's just kind of like the writing process. Every writer ideally builds out a rough draft, they get feedback, and then they approve it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Somebody wants to know, how many games have you made? Do you know?
So that's actually the funny question when it comes to prototyping is I would say I've put out 3 or 4 Roblox games and maybe like 2 or 3 myself. But if you actually look in my prototypes folder in my computer, there's probably like 40 prototypes there of just like weird ideas I had that I just made a prototype that never really went anywhere, but it just kind of shows you like sometimes you just got to make a prototype, but you might not actually get that game fully made. But it's all still a building process.
Right. And I guess that's part of prototyping. You get to see if your idea is worth investing all that time to create or not. But when you are working on that prototype, when do you know that you've done enough iterations and you should take it to further polish?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Is I say once you have the basic feel of your game, and that's really hard to say just because you can say like game design isn't exactly so much of a science. It's a little bit of an art. Once you actually get the basic feel that, okay, I think I have my idea here, I can go ahead and start figuring out the whole planning process. Once you actually get that planning process, you're going to break your game down into a whole bunch of things like, okay, I need to do this coding work, I need to do this modeling work, and then I can finally go ahead and build it out.
Cool. That makes perfect sense. And to confirm, making a prototype, even pushing a game, publishing a game in Roblox is 100% free, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Like you all you need is a Roblox account. You can get Roblox Studio, which is the software to make games, and then you can publish a game. And honestly, if your game's even successful, you can start earning money right on that game without really having to pay Robux or Roblox.
No Robux from Roblox to make
Yeah,
the
that's
game.
always confused me.
So one person asked, do you need to know how to code when doing initial designing and prototyping on Roblox?
So that's actually the really cool thing there. And actually, let me screen share for a moment because this might help. That is, I'm gonna go ahead and share a screen here. But yeah, one of the cool things actually about Roblox is you actually don't need to have code when you first start out. For instance, let's just say I want to do a capture the flag game. So in here, in Roblox Studio, you actually have tons of templates, and I can go ahead and just kind of move around enemy bases. I can go ahead and let's just say I want to like build a huge mountain straight in here. You can actually get into the whole idea of prototyping in Roblox. Wow, that is a very ugly looking mountain, but let's just call this prototyping. Um, but you can actually get into all the acts of prototyping straight without actually using code, because in a lot of these templates in Roblox, the code is actually right there for you. So if I actually did wait for this intermission to finish, because I'm a little bit impatient, it would actually start a shooting game, capture the flag game. Yeah, you don't exactly need to code. It always helps to code, but you don't actually, you can just get straight into building.
That's really, really neat. So one of the other questions was the theme for this game design challenge is advancing sustainability. Do you have any recommendations for how someone could come up with a game or game design that matches that theme?
Yeah, so this is something, what I would actually recommend is going actually to paper prototypes. Is what I will recommend is a great brainstorming technique is what we sometimes nicknamed info dumps. So you just write things down. So if I want to build something about sustainability, I write down a word that makes me think about sustainability, like recycling. So with recycling, what kind of verbs make you think about recycling? Okay, so collecting things makes me think about recycling. Um, Reusing things makes me think about recycling. Cleaning things makes me think about recycling. And then with those verbs, I can actually think about what kind of verbs can I use to build out a game. Maybe I'm building out a game where I just clean up things in the neighborhood or collect a whole bunch of things in the world.
That's a great way to approach having those verbs and then taking it from there. Another question is, other than starting to develop prototypes, what else can I work on to work in video games?
Oh, so there's so many ways that we can answer a question like this. One way is figuring out what you really like and learning a little bit more about it. Like if you're interested in coding, take up a coding class. If you're interested in art, take up drawing classes. One other thing that I also really recommend when it comes to game design is try and I would say honestly, just try and learn a lot and explore the world. Like this sounds like very vague, but it can be things like taking a history class in something or learning about different types of games played in different parts of the world. Since these all can be different ideas that can kind of spark something cool in your head.
Absolutely agree with that. One of the things that I love about game development is that it brings together basically anything you could ever think to study. So, writing and history, and math and physics and chemistry. One of my friends loves space, and so he made Universe Sandbox, which is all about space and space physics, because that's what excited him. And so, the fun thing about games is you can just bring all of your passions to life and into what you do. Great. So let's see. Someone also asked, I often get stuck coming up with ideas. How do you get your ideas for your games? Now, I know you said verbs. Verbs and starting with verbs is one way. Doing not mood boards, the other boards is another way. What else? Do you have any other recommendations for just coming up with different design ideas?
So one real good recommendation is, so this was a great recommendation from a creative writing class, is sometimes when it comes to coming up with ideas, we have this idea of, oh, inspiration will strike me at any moment and I'm going to have an amazing idea. But really, when it comes to being creative, you have to be creative consistently. So what I would recommend is saying every time, at least once a week, sit yourself down for like 10 minutes and try and write as many game ideas as you can. Um, by actually making it this thing that you do more and more, you'll just become more comfortable, and it'll also be honestly less pressure. Like, rather than having to come up with a great game idea on the spot, you're just going to get used to, oh, it's that time of the week for me. I'm just going to brainstorm some game ideas. They might not be the best, but, I'll just come up with some. So just try and make it something part of your life, just that you can do each week.
Yeah, practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
basically practice.
Yeah. So, you were talking about the iteration of prototyping, how you come up with an idea, you get that your friends, your coworkers to play test that idea, and then you make changes. How does one do play testing, and what should you look for when someone is play testing your prototype?
So whenever I do play testing for prototypes, I like to go in what we call cold. So let's just say that game where you play with your phone, I would just hand my phone to one of my friends and just say, like, play this. And they'd look at me and just be like, how do I play it? And I would just look back at them and just say, I don't know. And already something like that, if they don't actually know how to play the game, that's actually telling me valuable information that, okay, I actually need to work on how to actually teach my players how to play the game. So a lot of it is coming up with these questions, but a lot of it is also just like observing. And honestly, sometimes that observing can be really hard. Like, I remember working in university classrooms where I would have the college students I would teach, it would be their first game they've ever made. And oh my gosh, somebody is just breaking every part of their game. And I'm just trying to make sure that the people making the game, oh, they're staying calm. Just watch them, watch their every move. Don't say anything and just observe. Game testing is just all about that process of observation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard when someone looks lost and they're confused and they're looking for you for help to keep your mouth shut and let them fail. Let them fail because you learn more from that than
Yes.
anything else. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. If there's any other questions in chat, you better get those questions out now. I know that we're already over time, but do you have any final prototyping parting words of advice for our audience?
Yeah, really, like, what I would just say is, like, embrace starting small. Nothing wrong with making a small little game and just throwing it away. All of your ideas just build up and build up. like I mentioned with all the prototypes I've made, I might have had like 50 different prototypes that I've built, but I get like 2 or 3 great games out of that. And you know what? That's kind of just how the creative process works.
Absolutely. It's about trying it out and narrowing it down. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for everyone who is watching and the wonderful questions that you had. This will be uploaded later to iGDA's YouTube channel, so if you missed something or you want to rewatch, go ahead and look for it there. And Peter, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank y'all so much and have a good day.
All right, take care.